Episode 2. Guys, to be honest with you, it's 5:15. My brain's off. We just recorded for like 20-something minutes, and my brain just was not clicking on that conversation.
Well, dude, if you go to a basketball game before it starts, they're warming up for an hour sometimes before the game.
Yeah? Is this the game?
Yeah, this is the game now. That was our warm-up.
Good. And a lot of this, we said this in the 20 minutes that we just scrapped, a lot of this is exercise for me, so when I do podcasts, I have better live speech. Because just so you know, guys, there's a clip that one of our short form editors sent me a while ago of Iman on his raw takes, right?
Yep.
And a lot of people were like laughing about it, but that's anyone who creates any kind of sit down content, and it's me too. When I'm speaking, if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to say it and continue from where I best left off, right? It's like that. And when you go from that brain to a podcast, it's actually a really hard muscle switch, right?
Yep.
Where my brain is used to, okay, if I stutter, if I mess up, if I switch, I can crop that out, I can reset. I have to think about where my tonality ended so I can continue. But on live, I just have to think about how to save my fumble. I don't have Ollie, my editor, saving it for me.
Right.
And that first 20 minutes, all I kept thinking was as if I was in front of a camera doing a sit down and recognizing this is going to be the worst speaking ever. So I'll use it as practice, but this whole thing is also supposed to be practice so that when we, it's also supposed to, of course, just be overall good conversation. People listen to our conversations all the time, bro, in the car, and they always said that we should do a podcast.
Yeah,
so.
It's just fun to talk, and I think people like to hear it, which is cool.
Yes. So episode 2. We're going to get into it. I do want to set expectation, guys, that the sun is setting. So we're going to go until sun sets because in this room, there's a lot of natural light. You can see it on John's screen. You can see I'm in the shadow. I'm actually going to play with my exposure just a little bit right here. I'm a lighting freak, and I know we're not going to be able to go for probably more than 40 minutes. So, well, bang it. We had a lot of good conversation in that first 20 minutes. I don't want to reset the entire conversation and have it all over again because it would probably feel inauthentic. But do you want to recap kind of what we were talking about?
Recap was a few different things. So what we've been talking about a lot with clients and friends, and we even talked about it some with the event with the clients who came in town here at the office, was that a lot of people, for lack of a better term, kill their business because they try to scale too fast. And they go up very quickly and they go down very quickly. And we were talking about people setting goals and people putting incorrect timelines on the goals. We were talking about a specific client who wanted to go from $20K a month to $100K a month in 5 months, which is kind of ridiculous.
No, not in 5 months. In
5
weeks.
5 weeks or something. Insane. Yeah, even 5 months is crazy, but 5 weeks is even crazier. And just kind of talking about how most people, I think, take the fun. The thing that I get from this is I think when you're in that push mode that you were talking about, it actually just makes business less fun because you're always holding yourself up to this unrealistic standard and you're not actually getting to enjoy yourself at all. And I think when you're not enjoying yourself, you don't actually get into flow. And so when I kind of think about some of the times in business where I've pushed the hardest and had the strictest goals and the tightest deadlines, it's always the least fun. And I think what we're kind of getting back to on some of this stuff is that people are very unrealistic about this and they hold themselves to these false standards and then they just end up coming short and then they kind of put themselves in a continuous state of setting a goal and then missing it, which also doesn't create a very good feedback loop. So that's kind of the synopsis of the scrapped 20 minutes that no one unfortunately will ever see.
Maybe what we'll do, Ollie, when you watch this and you can keep this in here, Ollie, take a good section and just plug in the video from before of me not being stupid and having a good riff in the first 20 minutes, John adding very good conversation, starting a good conversation, leading it. Maybe show them that. Because I feel like when we talked about the proverb, the parable of the sower, things were fine there. I just started to go downhill after that, And so actually the very first thing John said, not to promote any kind of bad behavior, is I do have a little glass of tequila to my left, and he was like, maybe have a sip of your...
Just have one sip.
Yeah.
It's not getting drunk, it's just having one sip,
It feels weird I'm going to do it.
Remember, the Pharisees called the disciples drunks because they would drink.
I feel like that's a bad area to start going down.
That's the truth. That's the truth. That's biblical, dude. They called them drunks because they would get together and drink wine. You know what we used to say at church, in Baptist church? Jesus didn't turn didn't turn water into Dr. Pepper. They would say that at my
It's a
church.
slippery slope, when you...
Nothing in excess. We talked about, though, this is actually branches well into what we're talking about, which is instant gratification.
Yes.
And how people are chasing instant gratification. And I was thinking about this today. I kind of read every morning, and I think a lot while I'm reading. And I was just kind of thinking that I feel like everything good that's happened in my life has been because I have delayed pleasure and not accepted instant gratification. And I think what a lot of this is in business as well. Because, I don't know, man, I kind of do believe that in business, if you've experienced a little bit of turbulence or a little bit of struggle, I do think you appreciate the good things more when they happen.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. And so I think that I was, kind of just thinking about this today and reflecting on this. And it's like, at the end of the day, good things happen in your life when you delay gratification. And, that's what a lot of being a Christian is, realistically, is denying your, fleshly desires or your mind's desires and, these sort of things to get closer to Christ, right? And essentially what you're doing as a Christian is, it says in the Bible, is we're storing up heavenly rewards, not earthly rewards in a lot of cases. And so, talk about this a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, about kind of instant gratification, why you think so many people, specifically in our space, chase this. Where do you think this kind of comes from? And some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think the root of it is that if you're not a Christian, then you're living for this life. And if you're living for this life and you have 60, 70, 80, 90 years, then you are, and let's not even play the 90-year mark, right? Most people who are living for this life, they're really thinking, I have 50 years on this planet to play life.
Yeah.
And you're 20, let's say, for even numbers. Then you're thinking about the fact that you have 30 years, which sounds like a long time, but it's not. I'm 30 now, and it blew by. You're thinking about the fact that I have this much time to win at life and have fun and do everything I want. And so, you're going to want to get there as quick as possible so you can enjoy the fruits of it. Versus when you're a Christian, you're recognizing that this life is an infinitely small part of your infinite being. There's a word I'm thinking. I'm blanking on the word for not infinity, but everlasting. When you recognize that you are not
immortal?
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. When you recognize that you're not mortal, but you're an immortal soul, and your soul will exist forever, I think that changes the time. And we were talking about this in the 20 minutes that we scrapped, but the perspective of God versus the perspective of humanity, and the perspective of billionaires versus the perspective of new business owners, right? And timescape and thinking. At the end of the day, if you're a Christian building, knowing that this is just part of your, a infinitely small fraction of your infinite being, it gets really easy to say, I'm going to, prolong satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also one of the things that we always used to say with the last company that we were at, is that you are who you are, right? And so, better every day is, if you're not working out or dieting or reading or doing something every single day in your personal life to get better, then you're probably not trying to get better in business. And the same kind of thing, if you're not, fasting as an example, or, not eating sweets or doing whatever it is to delay gratification. There's a lot of ways that you can delay gratification or not take gratification today. You're probably doing the same thing in business, right? And so if you can delay gratification in personal life, you can probably delay it in your business.
Yeah.
But I think most of the people who are in the business world that we're in, the online world, a lot of them are involved in crypto. And I genuinely, outside of investing in now at this point, it'd be a hand select massive, Bitcoin, for example,
Yep.
given, or maybe Ethereum and such. Outside of investing in stuff like that, anyone that's investing in any kind of altcoins or mining coins or such, they're looking for money quick,
wins,
right?
yeah.
They're looking for that dopamine hit. They're looking for, they're not delaying gratification. They're looking for gratification right now. Versus, someone asked Warren Buffett, this line better than I did, why doesn't everyone take your investing strategy? And he said, because it takes 60, 70, 80 years or whatever he said.
You get rich slowly.
Yeah. But at the end of the day,
wants to get rich slowly,
no one can argue that way works.
Yeah.
Right. He said, Warren Buffett, one of the richest people in the world, said to his family, when I die, take everything and just put it in the S&P 500 for Vanguard. Right. And so at the end of the day, that's delaying gratification. Granted, you can say once you have $1 billion, $5 billion, whatever he's worth, $7 billion, it's easier to say.
But I think he got there with that mindset.
With that mindset.
Yeah.
Correct. Which is also something we talked about earlier. this is why it's bad to scrap a podcast. You know, Rob Lipset, by the way, when I did the podcast with him, he said this at the very beginning. He said he doesn't have a conversation before a podcast because he doesn't want to get the conversation. You know, he doesn't want to be bringing back. Now I understand, because we just had a 20-minute conversation. Granted, it was recorded, that we're not using, now we're referring back to. I'll just say, I think realistically, being a Christian, just like you said, is all about delaying gratification and delaying it in, you know, your sex life, in your financial life. It's about delaying gratification in your dietary life with fasting and such. And it's about doing it on all these massive pillars of life. And when you can, and then Proverbs,
even who you hang around.
Say again?
Even who you hang around.
Yes.
You know, we might have friends that are very fun, but, you know,
they remove them.
Right.
You know? And so it's when you, and then Proverbs, of course, reinforces this. When you are able to delay gratification in your personal life, it becomes very easy to delay gratification in your business life.
Yeah.
You know, it's because you are who you are. And if you can delay gratification in your business life, then you don't set these stupid goals of having to grow obscenely quick.
Yeah.
And what we talked about before, the parable of the sower, is when you grow, you know, as fast goes up, goes down. If you need instant gratification, you're going to do things that might make you a lot of money, but you're going to keep, it's almost like gambling at that point. You know, you're going to keep doing it, and eventually house is going to win. You're going to come down.
Yeah.
And so if I look at the guys who have amassed genuine wealth in this world, they've been playing the game in really conservative ways for a long, long time. You know, and then you know, even we could get into what one of my mentors said, which is the people who might still get lucky, have massive wealth, got there quick, didn't delay gratification, but got lucky in a way. I'm talking like invest in Bitcoin in 2007 or something.
Right.
Even then, there's still something that I love the term for this. It's like the give a damn feature, right? Which is when you meet someone, do you give a damn that you met them? Is there something about them that is interesting? And this is what I think of when I think of so many of the people who got rich in crypto. Number one, I don't think they'll stay rich, because I think they're going to continue doing that thing. And again, I think the house will win. But number two is I've met a lot of like crypto millionaires. I'm sure you have. And they're just so shallow. It's so bleh when you meet them, because there's no character to them. There's no tribulation that they went through in order to gain the character. Versus when you meet someone who's amassed $10 million, $20 million in business, the amount of shit that they had to eat and take on, developed a character inside of them that's really unique and interesting. And it talks about this in the book of James. It talks about this all throughout the Bible. The book of James is the one that comes to mind right now for best. But it's like, when you go through tribulation, do it with a smile on your face, right? Be like take on that tribulation, knowing that it's creating a character in you and a unique kind of glory. There's a song, by the way, I want to shout out to this. It's Though You Slay Me by Shane and Shane, and John Piper has a really, you've heard me play this probably 100 times. I love this song. And John Piper has something in the middle of this talking about how when you go through that kind of tribulation, it creates an infinite weight of glory that you could only go through if you went, or only receive if you went through that kind of tribulation. And I think at the end of the day, if you can delay gratification and you can go through that tribulation, you can smile through it and you can develop the character, and people give a damn because of that what they're seeing is that glory that you have, that God put you through, that God gave you through tribulation, that makes you unique. I think there's, anyway, all to say, I think realistically, if you look at it, the people who can delay gratification, if they're not Christian, they're almost always at least godly. They just don't know who God is.
Right.
Right. Versus the people who don't are almost always of this world. They're secular. And that's probably the best riff I can give on that.
Yeah. You know, we watched 300 a few weeks ago.
That's where you go right away?
Absolutely. Because when you think about it, they were all so tough and so mentally strong. They're like, even when they were dying, and this is obviously a fictional movie, but even when they were dying, it's based off a true story, but it's not a real movie. But like, even when they were dying, they were like, they had smiles on their face. You know, like they were still tough and they were still mentally strong, I guess is what I was trying to say. Like, you know the story of Samson when he died, you know, when they gouged his eyes out, and then he pulled down the pillars and he killed all the people. That's a crazy story, but it shows that, like, some of these people that were tested had the most sort of mental toughness and were able to go through things that most people wouldn't be able to withstand, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think the story of Samson's a little bit different. I think he was, you know...
He messed up, and God still used him, what's crazy.
I generally think it's just... the more tribulation you go through, the more that you allow the Holy Spirit to you know, reside in you, and the more the Holy Spirit resides in you. Look at the apostles before Christ was crucified, and then look at the apostles after, where they were all -1 killed, in terrible ways. None of them were willing to go through that before Christ died. All of them were willing to go through that after Christ died. And I think that's because the Holy Spirit was put into them. And I think that the tribulation essentially allows you to welcome that spirit inside of you, and it almost forms place for you to have that light inside you burn bright in that spirit to embody you anymore. And I think that's why you can take on things when you go through tribulation. There's probably principle to that in the Bible that I'm not aware of.
I know we talked about this a little bit last week, but I think this is why a lot of people in our space are coming to Christ, is because I think that you just operate with a whole different sense of peace than you did previously when you weren't a Christian. You operate with that Christ-like peace that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Hello, camera. You're getting really dark here.
How are we looking?
Keep the conversation going for a second, bro. Ollie, if you can edit this. Why is
this is distracting me. I'm going to wait.
Second?
It's distracting me. I'll just wait till you get it.
I can't. The ISO button's not doing anything. What do I do here? ISO's not. Do I have to? Oh, there we go. Alright, bro. After you.
Sorry. And this is why I think we talked about this last week, but I think this is why a lot of people in this space are coming to Christ, because I think that when you have that peace that the Holy Spirit offers you, you can just operate with a lot more clarity. And I also think that when tribulation does come your way, you understand that God's got your back, and that the Holy Spirit's going to protect you.
Yeah. Something Hunter Iman used to say all the time, I don't know where that Freudian slip came, was that he doesn't believe in happiness, and happiness is a fleeting emotion.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the wisdom at the time to say that, I agree, happiness is a fleeting emotion. But what you're looking for in life is peace, and you're looking for joy. Joy is not, you can have a joyful heart. Agreed. You can have a heart that's at peace. And both of those come through your relationship with your Maker, with Christ.
Sorry, I'm dropping stuff. Uno momento, por favor.
John's playing with his...
Got it.
There we go. Pellegrino down below. But yeah, I have nothing else to say on that point, bro. I think you hit it perfectly. At the end of the day, tribulation creates a character through the Spirit, and it's what makes you interesting, and it's what makes you also able to be a human that's able to warrant the wealth that amasses in business. Otherwise, if I think about it all the time, if God had given me a ton of money when I didn't know how to steward it, it would not have been a blessing. It would have been a detriment. It would have killed my character. It would have killed my ability to see my need for Him. And so that's why at this point, I pray for flooding of business, which also means, of course, profit and money. But I also pray that our hearts are aligned beforehand so that we can best steward that, best know what to do with that. And I think that I just know, man, I'm always going to make as much money as I am able to carefully steward, because I pray for that, and I know God's going to take care of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to make it before you're prepared. I feel like I've made a lot before I was prepared adequately.
I think a lot of people do, and I think God almost does that purposely to show you your need for Him and your need to change for Him. Yeah, I think a lot of people have had their come into money without understanding how to
be ready,
wisely, steward that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you feel stupid after. You're like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
So.
And I also think too, we understand that things in life, you kind of have to get to a point where you've earned it or you've deserved it, and not from a entitlement sense, but from a sense of you've done the prerequisite things in order to get what it is that we're going after. Does that make sense? So meaning, like, if it was just so easy to get, nobody would appreciate it, right? Like, if anybody could just go tomorrow and start a business up and make millions of dollars, it wouldn't even be of worth. Like, I think that is a part of the fun of the game, is that it's not easy and everybody's trying to figure it out together, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that, and this is why, example given, there's so much pride in the military, because you have to go through basic to get there. Same with the police academy. You have to go through 6 months to get the badge to be a police officer. They don't just hand it to you after you get accepted. It's the same thing with physique. We were talking earlier about Rob Lipset as a friend. I think of Rob now when I think of gym and fitness. But you can't have Rob's body without years and years and years of hard work. And so it's the fruit of the labor. And at the end of the day, that's all money is too. To most people in business, like there's a reason that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and such don't really care about what they dress like, right? And there's a reason. And outside of, and we can get into branding, because at the end of the day,
like if you have a sweater this clean.
We could get into branding and dressing and importance for it and when to do it, etc. I think in our world it's relatively important because, and then we could get into even Hermosi having a brand that's not about that, which is as much of a brand as us or Iman wearing what Iman wears and such. All to say that, help me out here with the edit, Ollie. Just a side note, I'm blanking on the point where we were talking about.
We're having a brand, instant gratification. We were mainly talking.
Can you note down 21 minutes?
Yeah, people really want instant gratification. And another thing that I've also learned is, and I was telling some of the guys this when they were in town, everyone tells me, every client we have, I'm not where I want to be yet. I still have goals. I still have more growth that I want to have, et cetera, et cetera. And I always ask them, like, hey, is it safe to say that you're making the most money you've ever made? And almost every single one of our clients is making the most amount of money they've ever made before. And they're like, yeah, I'm making the most money that I've ever made. And then when we realize at the end of the day, they are now making the most money they've ever wanted to make, or they're making the money that they once had a goal to make, and they're still not happy. And so it's like a mirage in the horizon where you keep chasing it, and people get this idea that, like, hey, when I'm hitting this amount of cash in my business, I'm going to be happy. And so they keep continuing to chase this number, chase this number, chase this number. And when they get there, they realize, like, hey, I don't really feel much different than I did before. So, like, I don't know about you, but I never really felt too much different at any stage of business growth. I kind of always felt the same.
Yeah. I think this is why when you first start in business, you're always looking for, like, tactic, I was going to say, like, tactful. I was going to say a word that doesn't exist. You're always looking for tactics. You're always looking for the things that are going to get you from, like, here to there, and what am I missing that would make me $100,000 a month? What are the key, every entrepreneur, it doesn't matter if you're making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a month, you're looking for that thing that you're missing. This is why USPs, unique selling propositions, or unique mechanisms or so, crush it with B2B, because and you don't really play with a lot of unique mechanisms. You do, don't get me wrong, but you don't play with it nearly as much in BizOp as much as you do in B2B. In B2B, it's this, are you an agency? Well, you need to have this 3-letter acronym,
AI system,
whatever, yeah, or you have to have this one thing that plugs into your business, except whatever it is, it's always unique mechanisms, and it's because we're always looking for the one thing that helps us get to the next level, right? And I think realistically, when you're first starting, you're looking for that until, one of our clients, Jaime Hoguera, he was doing almost $2 million a month, probably around, it was 1.7 million euros when the dollar was a little less strong, and he and I really just talked about mindset for like half the time. And a lot of the clients that we've had that do 800,000 for 400,000, call it $500,000 plus per month on average. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of corporate structuring and team structuring and management and leadership and such that we talk about. But a lot of it's also just mindset and kind of what you talked about. It's not like what's the unique mechanisms we're missing. It's rewiring their almost time span to think about. You want to know what I think about all the time, bro? That this makes me realize. I was thinking about this the other day with Imam, and I was thinking about.
You'll need to continue on your personal device. Sorry, something's gone wrong. Please try again.
I don't know if the mic picked that up. I forgot watches today, so I'm still wearing my gym watch. Pardon me. I was thinking about Iman. I was thinking about the time skip we had, and there were so many times where I just didn't feel like I was aligned with Iman. And it kind of like hit me in the cards because Iman, I genuinely think, was thinking on a 10-year basis, and I was thinking on like a 3-year basis, right? And it's almost like when you look at the book of Job, and Job is questioning God like we all do, and then God completely humbles him. it's, this is our like perspective half the time as an entrepreneur. And in reality, the people who beat us are like Elon Musk is thinking on a 20, 30 year perspective. Granted, 30 years of perspective, you can still see like the month by month, week by week kind of stuff that you have to do. But I was just thinking realistically that I didn't have up until I'd say a year ago more than a 5-year kind of timescape, of what I want to do and what I want to build. And I don't think for a lot of like when this is different than setting goals, because I don't know how to word it. Knowing what I want to build for 5 years is different than setting a goal for 5 years, because realistically, setting a goal, you might change how you want to build something, or it might completely be irrelevant in 2 years based on a change you have to make. I just know, example given, we're going to be working on this YouTube for 5 years.
You know the direction you're rowing in and what you're working. Yeah.
Right? And when you know that, and when you kind of have that on that long timescape, which I think you have to have some money in the bank in order to do, because you don't, realistically, it kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're focused on money for tomorrow for rent, it's really hard to focus on what you're going to do in 5 years, right?
But I also think there's some validity to saying, like, when you are thinking that way, a lot of times that runs away from you as well. So it's almost like a conscious choosing of what to focus on. And I feel like for me in the past, like when I'm super stressed, it just compounds and builds. And so like almost it's like, I think it's good to start thinking like this now so that you can start to focus on higher level problems.
All to say that money to most is what they're going for, but to like a vetted business person, it's just a fruit of the labor, and eventually, just like, Rob probably likes the workout more than new people like workouts, and just like Elon Musk probably likes solving problems more than even we like solving problems.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Eventually, it becomes a love of the labor, and the fruit is something that just comes from it. It's the same thing with a Christian. At the end of the day, as a Christian, the fruit of the Spirit is beautiful, but it's the labor of closing our relationship with Christ that we're actually focused on, and so when you're focused on and this is why everyone says you have to love the game in order to stay in it, in order to get the fruit. But as a business person, if you're focused on the fruit, if you're focused on the money, number one, you're going to do stupid things with it. Number two, the love for money is the root of all evil. You're going to do wrong things for it. It talks about in Proverbs 2 and all throughout the Bible that unrighteous money essentially is going to always go away and such. And all to say that if you are focused on the labor and the game of business, the fruit will come, and it will mean a completely different thing than if you are focused on the fruit and the labor is laborsome.
And you'll enjoy doing it.
Yeah. I feel like this points. I don't know. I want to reset the conversation, John. I feel like we're getting a little. I don't know about you. I feel like we're getting tired, right? But we can't get tired on social media. We can't get tired on YouTube. So, what's another point that you think we talk about often that we can get into that can re-spark this convo? I just stumped you.
Yeah. I like talking about this because I feel like people need to hear this. Because I think that people get in a perpetually bad cycle. And I actually think this is what causes a lot of problems in our space. Because people have unrealistic expectations. I think this in our space is the equivalent to like bulimic models. Meaning like, how models that are bulimic, they like make themselves throw up and they have this body image and they're depressed and unhappy and these sort of things because they have this image of who they think they need to be. I think that's like our business equivalent to this. And especially you see on social media, oh no, this guy just did $1 million in a month and this guy just did this. And I think there's so much of that. And I think that is so un-Christ-like in every way. That's why I wanted to talk about this.
That's fair. Okay, so I think talking about imagery and people building toward the wrong image is aligned with what we're talking about, but just different take. I guess I was looking for a different angle to at least approach on.
And I think everyone in the comments is going to be like, no, keep talking about this. This is fire.
Okay.
And I think we'll probably feel like because we did one before this.
So we
feels
probably feel
longer
like,
than it is.
Yeah, that's fair. We're 25 minutes in, but we've been talking about it for like 50 minutes now. Okay, so, dude, I actually have a YouTube video that's dropping. Okay, this is going to come out Monday. This video is going to drop Wednesday. So it's the video that dropped last Wednesday. And it's talking about busyness and being a busy bee and how most people in business are trying to build feeling like they're a busy bee and such. You're laughing because we're talking with the name that I never used in the YouTube video is the name of a friend of ours because I had to name it after a girl that I had the hots for in high school. All to
That's
say,
so good.
I think, I constantly think about the guys on YouTube. The lighting here is really getting to change a little bit, so excuse me while I play with camera a little bit. John, your lighting has been fine the entire time, but it's me in the shadow that's been taking the blunt end of the changing sun. I think realistically, the thing that devastates, what I really do think it is, bro? I'm reading a George Washington book and an Elon Musk book and a Steve Jobs book and Thomas Jefferson book. And in there, I sporadically go from them, and I'm not disciplined in reading them like I need to be. I haven't read anything in like 4 or 5 days. All to say that as I go through, there's no like short clippets of just sexy work that you see people doing and such. But if you look at any, Dan Martell, Hermosi, Andrew Tate, Iman Gadji, continue to name off different people in business, it's always these short form pieces of content about how they're always working 24/7 and they're always doing something 24/7. They're making as much money as possible every single second of the day. And I just don't actually think, from knowing that it's just not true. If you meet most of these people, one of the things I talked about in this video is that, and you met one of my best friends the other day who's a close mentor of mine, you can probably see it in just meeting him one time. Most of these people are extremely present people who are not busy. They're extremely busy to me is chaotic time management. It's poor time management, right? These guys all have amazing time management. They all know what they're signing up for. And most of their time is just thinking, right? And I think that it's one of the things that if you look at, I don't know about how many people in the, we're friends with James, and James has this club, and I've spent a lot of time around those guys. A lot of the people who are listening to this might be in there. I've spent time around other young entrepreneurs, and the biggest thing that I almost always see is that they're just doing so many things, and they're networking like crazy and texting like crazy, and they're always on their phones. They're never present, and they're just constantly doing what they think is work. And it's just so backwards. But that's the image that they have. The image that they have is that they have to constantly be working, right? Whereas I think, I talked to Ollie about this when I was recording the video yesterday. I think I do a really good job of this. If you ever hang out with me, I'm going to boast my boat for a second, or like float my boat. I think I'm a really present guy. And I think for the most part, unless I'm thinking, you commented on this the other day when you were talking to me, and then I just went into a chain of thought, and then I came back and you were like, did you hear that? And I was like, what are you talking about? And you were like, bro, how do you do that?
Well, maybe that's a presence just in a different way. You're present with your thoughts.
Yes, but I normally, and it's a little different with you and I, and then when guys live at the house with us, because it's not, and like at that point it's hard for me to get away, and I can't be as intentional with hanging out because I'm constantly with you, and so my thoughts at this point do start to trickle into when we hang out. But for the most part, when we hang out, I'm not on my phone, I'm not doing anything other, unless we're at the office working. When we're out and about, for the most part, I'm trying to be present. All to say, that's a very different image than most people have as to what a successful entrepreneur is, and I think it's because it's less sexy. It doesn't sell as well, to say that you are, and it all comes back from people who are trying to get people to be better versions of themselves. So it's almost like how God uses a bad thing for good. It's not bad that these are images that people have because it makes them want to work harder, but too much of, at the end of the day, if you have the wrong image, this is why our image is supposed to be Jesus, and if you look at Jesus did more work than anyone that we're ever talking about or ever going to talk about other than Christ. Pardon me, this is why you don't drink Pellegrino when you're doing a podcast, by the way. Side note, if you ever watch a podcast of ours or mine on YouTube, I have a rule, same with videos, no sparkling water, always still water, because when you drink sparkling water and you're talking a lot and you have to drink a lot, you're going to end up having a little bit of,
acid reflux.
Yeah.
When you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's the thing that I think about.
That's fair.
So when you think, I just need to be busy all the time, and I just got to work, that's all that you see. It's like you just think you got to be working all the time. But then when you become more mature, you realize, hey, a lot of things actually come from thinking or delegating or these sort of ideas. Then you just get better. I feel like everybody comes in this space, and they have this idea of what they think they need to do. And then they progress and mature in the space, and they realize, oh my gosh, what I thought I needed to do is polar opposite to what I actually need to do. So, question. How much intentional networking have you done in the last 3 years? Really tactically thinking about, oh my goodness, I need to do some networking.
like going out of my way to network.
Right.
I don't think I ever have.
And you have one of the biggest networks of anybody that I know.
Yeah, there's a guy who told me that there's two types of people. This was a savage statement from this kid. A kid, right? You know who I'm talking about by the fact that I say kid. There are two types of people in the business world. There are people who are pretty much professional networkers. Their whole thing is to gain social status by being able to connect you with this person and this person and this person, then you get connected to this, and then they have like a Rolodex or a CRM on their phone. I just said the word Rolodex. They have a CRM on their phone, the CRM where it's just like the last time they talk to people, they're always reaching out, they're always staying connected with you, etc. That's like a genuine type of person, right? Where a lot of people, their value is the network that they have.
Yeah.
And then there's the kind of person that I aim to be and strive to be, which is the kind of person that when you call and your name pops up on someone's phone, they answer. Doesn't matter what they're doing. And I think I've done a really good job of doing that. Because, and you can get into, like, there's a lot of, background nuances that we can get into on this stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're constantly trying to network and you're constantly available and you're constantly getting in front of people and you're constantly trying to, you're at every networking event, I think Eddie Malouf does a good job at this, right? Because he's got the value and he's always there and such, and probably there is a way to make it work.
Yeah, he's good at it.
Yeah, there's a way to make it work. I'm not saying it can't work, but I think for 90, and he's doing what, $2 million a month? Yeah,
he's making a lot of money.
A month?
Doing super well.
Yeah, I think for most people, at the end of the day, it's just not needed distraction. Where there's a reason that we're not in Miami and we're in middle of nowhere, Maryland. It's because I don't want to have countless people hitting us up saying, do you want to do dinner? Do you want to do lunch? Do you want to go get coffee? Do you want to go get drinks? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do a podcast, etc.? It's just us. Normally, it's the two of us, the three of us, just me, the four of us, however many people here, doing the same thing every single day, coming to the office, leaving the office, getting a dinner, etc. No distraction, no networking. And if I ever care to have, anyone in my circle that's not, then it's either I have to work to create the name that can get into that circle, or it's, have them come out to the office and do whatever, here.
Yeah, it's almost like as you do more and get better and scale and these sort of things, you almost become like the complete opposite, and you want to do it. You want to network less, and you will really value quality over quantity more than anything.
Absolutely.
Like think about Iman, how many people he has bidding for his time at all times.
Yep.
This person wants this, and this person wants this, and it would almost turn you into a recluse, where you almost just don't even want to leave your house because it's like, oh my goodness, everybody is trying to bid for my attention. And so it's not a good use of time. But when you get in the space, you think like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely what I need to do.
Yeah.
And so
I've never told anyone this.
Uh-oh.
And I almost don't know if I even want to say it on a podcast, but when you first start in the online business space, so my first business before real estate marketing was a sales consulting company. And I say business, I was like a freelancer making, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 a month or whatever. I did it for like 2 months. And I said 4 numbers there. I just couldn't tell you for the life of me how much it was. But when you first start in the space, you want people to know you're doing well, what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Et cetera, right? So there's like definitely a networking element of like just pride that you want people. And I remember I was doing Facebook outreach, etc. And this girl, instead of, talking about sales, offered to do a podcast with me. And I didn't know what she did until I was on the podcast. But she was a professional cuddler. That was her job. She cuddled for a profession. Ollie's looking at me off camera right now like, what?
Like in person.
Like in person, she would go to people's houses and cuddle with them for X amount of hours. And that was her job. Or not job, but business, or, that was her. The same face you had is kind of what I had on my face. I'm really hoping at this point that it's not on YouTube anymore, because this was 6 years ago, bro, or 5, however many, this is a long time ago. But when you're first starting, you're going to go out.
You'll say yes to anything.
You'll say yes to anything. Actually, side note, Ollie, do me a favor. I need to make sure that we reach out in case it's still up. I need to find out who this was. I can't remember the name. And we need to get that off of the internet in case it's still on. So by the time you're watching this, I will have our team go through and find it. All to say.
That's crazy.
Yeah, when you're first starting, I think that the reason for networking is one of two lies. Number one is you want people out of pride to feel
Yeah, this is the most
hear that
common,
you're
I
doing
think.
well. I think that's very common. Number 2 is that you genuinely believe that you have to have a network.
Yeah.
But having a network of people that are not successful is not going to help you in the slightest.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, and I hate the term "your network is your net worth" because at the end of the day, that's not true at all, right? Your net worth is what you're worth and the value that you have and the value that you can give.
Your net worth is your net worth.
Your net worth is your net worth, man. You know, and your net worth will determine your network.
Right.
You know, which is I watched
Flip it.
Yeah, and I could go on and on about this, but I'm so anti-network. And I remember at one point last year, I was feeling kind of like a crossroads on what to do in business. I'm going to change the lighting on this again. Bro, this is going down quick. Yours, John, is still solid. Nothing we have to change on yours. I'm actually going to raise yours just a little bit.
We can, yeah.
And then me, John, or Ollie, I think I have to take this off. Yeah. 35 for Ollie. Cool. Reset, by the way, if I was still talking, this is the new lighting. We're constantly changing lighting because the sun is setting. Where were we?
Network. This whole fallacy that your network is your net worth, and kind of the two reasons.
Yeah,
that
it's either number 1 because you want people
ego.
to pridefully know that you're doing well, or number 2 is that you think it's because it's going to help you, and it's just not, right? Your network will determine your net worth will determine your network. And we could go into, even me, bro, you went through my Instagram DMs. It's just blankets of people messaging. Of course, there's like solicits and such, but it's people asking for podcasts. It's people asking for collaborations. It's people with actual YouTube accounts that have bigger followings than us asking for, collaborations on YouTube and such. I just think it's pointless, Yeah. It's just, it's not self nor mutually serving in the slightest. It's just a waste.
Yeah.
And so, but everyone will jump at the ability to, hop on a plane and go to a different country or a different state or such, because then they can make a little Instagram story out of it and they can look busy and they can look like they're doing all this stuff, rather than my favorite thing is just to sit in front of a computer and, work, which is, again,
crazy
hard
idea.
to sell, but
That's countercultural. I was trying to say that word last time. And I have something, I'm going to say something a little bit more harsh than what you just said. And it's that people have to realize, I think, their place in who they have access to. Meaning, I learned this when I had the podcast. And so I was right there at a certain point. And obviously, now I can't go network with Jeff Bezos, as an example. And even many people lower than him. So it's like you kind of have to also recognize as well. Because I learned this when I had the podcast. Like, when I had no one on the podcast, the guests that were in arm's reach were far different than the guests that were in arm's reach when I could have Grant Cardone on. And so it's like, what I think that we're getting to is you can either focus on looking busy and networking and taking photos and looking cool and not really doing anything, but it's all outward serving. It's all like, look at me, ego-driven stuff. Or you can just work, build, and then you're going to bring people in that want to, network with you. And I was telling Paul this, which was kind of funny, which was when we started to scale the agency, I used to get all these emails of people that wanted to invest, essentially, and a lot of them were blanketed emails, but it was still funny that I would get these emails. And I would think, you come and ask this after we've already started to get some traction. You would never have asked this before we were starting.
Yeah.
You got what I mean? So you have to get to a certain point before stuff like that can even happen.
Yeah.
And
I think it goes back, bro, to the character, the give a damn feature we were talking about, right?
Yep,
when you meet people,
exactly.
Whether or not you give a damn, because there are so many people who hit me, and I'm not trying to woe is me or float my boat or anything on this. It's just my DMs are flooded, mostly because of my programming, the Iman's program. Six-figure sales rep. My program is flooded with people asking if I can mentor them or if I can get a coffee with them or do a Zoom call with them or whatever be it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it's more personal than it is professional.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to word this without sounding rude. This sounds really charismatic in a bad way. But unless you've gone through tribulation, example given, if any of the people that we know that are doing $500,000 a month or 800. It's not like it's the money that I care about. Is like that's the barrier of entry in order for me to feel like I can hang out with you. It's just that the character development from those people, they're people that I can gain from and pour into, and we can have a good conversation and have a dinner, and it's not like one of us trying to play above each other, and it's just good conversation because they have character, versus every single time we've ever, and there's room in my heart always for pouring into people.
Yeah.
But if I always did it, I'd just constantly be around people who are either trying to, raise their status a little bit. You know what I'm talking about? When you hang out with people and they just instantly try to, pretend they're more, or act like they're more than they are. It's either always going to be that, or it's either going to always be them asking questions over and over and over. And that you can only do so much of that, which is why at the end of the day, a lot of people have, programs, to be honest with you, that's where they're willing to pour into,
help you.
But yeah, I totally agree with, there's no chance that I can hit up, a lot of people say that I need to do a podcast with George Janko, and I can't, I don't have a brand strong enough to get on a podcast with George Janko.
Yeah.
I also am not spoken well enough to get on a podcast with George Janko. I'm probably not biblically versed enough, nor even business versed enough in the two and how they converge, to get on a podcast with George Janko and have good conversation, and so you are only able to network with people that you should, it's you reap what you sow is really the first thing that I think of with this. And
yeah,
at the end of the day, a lot of people try to skip steps, and it just doesn't work. At the end of the day, you have the network that you should have. Once you start to gain traction and grow, your network will just naturally start to change because you reap what you sow. You sowed good work and hard work, and the fruit of that labor will come in. And a lot of people try to skip steps, and sounds wrong, but it just doesn't work. It's not,
It only sounds wrong in this context. So if you say, I really like tennis, I like friends that play tennis, so we can play tennis together, and we can go to dinner and talk about tennis and how to improve our tennis game, nobody would say, my gosh,
but imagine, I'm not saying that we're pro tennis players by any means in this example, but if you're really, really golf is a good example here because I know golf better, and Josh over there is a very good golfer, right? But if you're, shooting 105 on the golf course or 110, a golfer who shoots par is not going to want to play golf with you, even if you guys are best friends. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you're just throwing off the thing that he likes to do, right? And so at the end of the day, you can have, and they might still play here and there, like I said, intentionally changing the game and being, but they're not going to be the person that they want to, you're not going to be the person they want to golf with every single day. Mm-hmm. And so it's they might say hey,
you can
once
buy
a month,
golf lessons from them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the program analogy.
Yeah, but they're going to have their own golf friends that are, alike to that level of golf.
Right.
Granted,
and when you're a beginner, you're going to hang with beginners, and then as you get better, intermediate.
Now, there might be something else outside of golf that can make you guys network. So, example given, you might not have to have the development in character in business to be someone that is in the same network circle as X person. But, maybe for me, it's there are people who are less savvy in business, but advanced or at my level in Christianity, and I want to be right with them so that I can grow with them, right? Or example given, I'm missing it right now, but there's a chess club that I used to be a part of in Annapolis, and I'm at 1200 in chess or 1100 and such, and there's a lot of 1200s in there. So in example given, I might be business savvy, but I'm not going to be able to get in the network with people who are 1800s in chess because I'm just not going to be able to give them fair play, but I can get people. And so I think at the other end of this too is you can network with people based on another thing other than the one dimension.
Another shared experience.
Exactly. Other than, in this case, business, right? Yeah. And so if anything, if you're going to try to approach out of your league, at least play with a different perspective or angle or turnaround or workaround of hey, I know I'm not at this level in business with him, but I'm at this level of this with him. Yeah. And so I'm going to try to play that angle instead.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Of course. Well, people can bond better when they have shared experience and mutual understanding of each other. So if it's not in business, it can be in something else, but the point still stands. You would have some sort of shared experience and some sort of, way of understanding each other. And you build a deeper relationship. Because at the same time, it's harder to build relationships with people who you have zero things in common with. And then the more things you have in common, normally, the easier it's going to be to build a relationship. And so, all that to say, networking is kind of a scam.
networking is a scam. I've been saying this for years. It's not. I've been saying networking is a scam, and we'll end on this too because I think once we plug in a little bit of that first conversation, we'll be at right around an hour, which I would like these to stay around. The other thing I've been saying is a scam. This is one of my most viral pieces of content. Is that I think content for most people is a scam. I don't think most people should be doing content, which is ironic for very obvious reasons, you know?
Not really, because people like saying they make content. It's not ironic when it's working. I think if something's working, you know I need to do it.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it's ironic to say that most people shouldn't do content as we do content, right?
No, but I'm saying the content's working.
Fair.
You know what I mean?
But it's still me saying most people shouldn't do content as I do content. And I think what most people don't recognize, it's the same thing with network, right? Like, most people network for pride or thinking that it's what they're supposed to do. Same thing with content. Most people make content either for pride. Look at my numbers of my Stripes game where I profited, nothing out of this, but I'm going to say that I made $100,000 a month or whatever. It's pride, or it's what they think they're supposed to do. Oh, this is what everyone's doing to get leads, etc. I don't feel like most people should do content.
Yeah.
You know, I know we're going into like this attention era and such, but I know more businesses now than in a long time that are crushing it with just generic outbound. Not generic outbound, but like dialed in outbound or direct marketing. You know, direct marketing is having a kind of big comeback.
Yeah.
I want to say, whatever the masses do, I have always stayed away from. Content, I think you could probably say is not the case, but content, I waited around for 6 years or whatever in the online space.
Yeah, but in fairness, there's also an element too, right? It's like you are doing content while other people are doing content, but you're being unique in the fact that you're putting a lot more attention into it, and you're putting a lot more work into it, a lot more time into it, more money to it. So it's still a unique element of you doing something different than what other people are doing. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah, I hear that. I think the main thing, I like having videos that have CTAs or like actions to take for people. I think the main things I would tell people, number one, grow slow, right? To end this out, grow slow. You don't need to rush your goals. That's the thing that we need to inject into this. I'm glad we're doing this on Tuesday because this podcast will take a little more editing than the last one. But grow slow, take your time. What as fast goes up, goes down. As slow goes up, goes down. I think is what we need to start adding to that too. Number two would be network is a scam. Work on your net worth. Focus on your net worth. Focus on the labor. Grow to love the labor. The fruits will come. The fruits partially being the network that you will gather. And then number three, Canadian tuxes are back in.
Oh, I was going to ask you about this. Can you say something about what you're wearing here? Because can they see your pants on the shot?
Here.
Uh-oh.
Jeans, rolled up jeans, because I'm wearing Nikes. Jeans, denim.
I think the Apple Watch makes funny with it as well.
Yeah.
You need a jean strap.
Oh, that'd be too much.
That's what I'm going to get you for your birthday.
Canadian tuxes are not back in. But I got this hat and I had to do it.
It's
right? I think it's a vibe today, man.
It's a vibe.
Overall actions though, focus on growing slow, be patient with it, focus on the labor, the fruits will come. And as always, as I think I want to end these, if you didn't know, John and I do have a business consulting mastermind, and we work with info agencies, coaches, consultants, and such. And we focus on the principles that allow you to grow slow and steady, which sounds not sexy. And our whole thing is that we don't sell in a sexy way, but it's the non-sexy way of growing so that you can grow with stability for a long, long time. Because the truth that no one talks about is for you to actually make millions, you have to be around for a long time. You can't just do that quickly and then die out, right? Like at the end of the day, genuine wealth comes from stability and endurance in the game. Yep. Which you have to have good principles and fundamentals for, which is what we work on, which is why I think so many of our clients stay for so long. Yeah. And so Daley7, Daley7.com. If you want to go to Daley7.com, I think we'll probably make this a routine CTA at the end of our podcast. I would love for you guys to be there. If you want more about the convergence of Christianity and business, dailybread.co, dailybread.co is our, it's, a week trial. It's $1 and then a 7-day trial, and the $1 is because we had to do it. And then it's $1 a day, and that's where we focus on Christianity meeting business. And if you are not a business owner doing $250,000 plus per month, per year, I keep saying that because that was what we focused on last year. Last year, it was at least $250,000 per month. This year, we opened up the floodgates more. So it's $250,000 a year now. Smaller businesses, but I'm enjoying it a lot. If you're $250,000 a month, we still have a program that's one-on-one that we can talk with you on. So just another CTA to throw it out there. But dailybread.co, if you're not at $250,000 a year, dailybread.co, would love to have you in there. We do a Bible study every single week. It's called the Weekly Bread, to play on the name of Daily Bread that we do here, of course. But going through the Bible every week. Every week we have a Coffee and Connect. We talk about the Bible chat's popping in there. We share worship songs. We talk about business. It's a really good time. We'd love to have you guys in there. Until next time.
Happy hunting.
There you go. Let's go.
Go.
See you soon.